You're listening to the Night Demon Network. Go to nightdemon.net/subscriber to unlock more exclusive content.
Hello and welcome to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. I'm your host Nesbit. Today we're continuing our dive into the history of Night Demon. This is The Roots of the Demon, Part 5. So, last episodes, we heard about Jarvis, his stint in No Motive and his Hybrid Moments band, his Heartbeats band, and Armand and two of his bands from Satellite and Lemieux Lepore. We heard about Brent Woodward and his joining of the fucking Wrath. All of this taking place in the California music scene around Ventura and Oxnard. So, meanwhile, on the other side of the country, future Night Demon drummer Dusty Squires makes some connections that would lead to another band that would play a huge, huge part in the Night Demon history, New Liberty. Here's Dusty Squires.
I went to Ocean City, Maryland with a couple of my high school friends, and we were just clowning around on the boardwalk. It was a group of maybe like 6 of us, something like that. And I see this dude with tattoos walking on the boardwalk, and I was just all, yo, what up, dude? You in a band? And he's like, no. And I was like, oh, well, you look like you would be. And he's like, yeah, cool. Like, he basically was just telling me to buzz off.
My name is Shane Mack. I am a singer-songwriter, and I was in a band called New Liberty. Dustin. I'm in South Jersey, trying to figure it out. I'm a solo act. I'd just been approached by Sunset Records and Sony BMG as a singer-songwriter. Had to make this like big decision on whether or not I was going to, write songs professionally and like, write songs for other people, like that's the gig, right? I'm like walking on the boardwalk. It's 12:30 at night, and there is Diesel Bottoms just walking up to me, and he says, hey man, are you in a band? So this dude comes up to me and he says, hey man, are you in a band? You look like you're in a band. It's like midnight, like I'm on a boardwalk in Ocean City, Maryland. It's foggy. This dude was so adamant about music. And he's like, hey man, how's it going, dude? You play in a band? And I was like, I play music. And he's like, what's your favorite band? And I was like, I don't know, Leonard Skinner. Just like fucking with this guy, like completely. I'm like, it's Leonard Skinner.
And I'm like, well, I'm sure you like music. And he's like, yeah, dude, Skinnerd. And I'm like, Skinnerd? All right, I like Skinnerd too. Like, nothing wrong with Leonard Skinnerd. And, just kind of like being a bug in his ear. He's like, oh, yeah, I got Leonard Skinner. I like Leonard Skinner. Who else do you like? And I was like, I don't know, Avenged Sevenfold. And Dustin immediately said, oh, I know all about the Rev. I can play to a click track. And I said, hey, man, I'm a drummer and I play to a click and, I consider myself pretty decent, I guess, And he's like, oh, yeah? Okay, well, hey, I'm Shane Mack and I'm signed to Sony Records. And
what random person at midnight in the middle of the night on a boardwalk in Ocean City, Maryland says, I can play to a click track and I like the same shit you do? Diesel Bottoms, Dustin Cathcart, Dusty Squires. That was the guy. So we started talking, and I gave him the spiel, and you know, before I know it, everybody was making fun of me, saying like, hey, give this guy your number. And I was thinking to myself, you guys are a bunch of douchebags. I'm totally giving this guy my number. Like, you know, I can't wait for him to come out to Jersey and like actually like lay down on drums.
Turns out he was living in South Jersey, not too far from Philly, right on the other side of the bridge. And we ended up, you know, having a pretty good conversation then after the initial, like, you know, him being a little standoffish.
Flash forward to like 2 weeks later, sitting there with like my buddy Mark Bittner. We're like chilling, drinking beers, and, you know, it's like probably like 2 a.m. and Mark and I were like downing actually a bottle of like Jim Beam, and he goes, yo, what about that guy you told me you met on the fucking boardwalk? We should call him up right now. And we called him up, and Dustin answered the fucking phone and said, I will be down tomorrow. And this guy drove 2.5 hours from the fucking Poconos to South Jersey to like where we were living in this house that we lived in, and quote unquote auditioned for us, right? And just completely destroyed it. Just ripped up the kit. You know, showed up. Our friend who had his kit at the house was a lefty drummer, so Dustin rearranged his kit and just annihilated it. It was amazing. Like, you knew instantly, Diesel Bottoms, Dustin Kithcart, Dusty Squires was the real deal. You knew immediately. From the minute this kid started drumming, it was magic. It was fucking magic.
So I went down the next week, actually, and had a little jam. And the first song we ever worked on was a song called Sold Down the River.
I don't think for 1 second I'm born for this. Sure, I can tell, but my mind would never forget. I'm fighting out reading between your lines. Some shit has come to light that once was a buried in your mind. Right for your tears of betrayal you cried, when I can see right through you to that on your side. Misled, played for sucker, sold down the river of deception.
I was always a fan of like singer-songwriter structures, you know, when people write their own songs and are playing guitar to it and singing their vocal lines and all that kind of stuff. When a song's already established, it kind of helps me open up a little bit more creatively to kind of fit what they have going on. So Sold Down the River was really a cool first song to work on with him, and I felt like at the time it kind of showcased what I was working on, like in my drum lessons, because at this time I had been taking lessons for about 3 years. You know, had a really good time, and it felt good. I really enjoyed playing music with Shane. It was simple to start writing with him, and he was excited. Shane was excited to, you know, get some new songs out there.
After that, it was so easy. Like, everything was so easy, man. I was loving every minute of it. Writing songs, learning each other, like how we operated as people, and just, you know, Dustin was such an 80s hair metal freak. It was amazing, man. God, it was just like so incredible. I think back and I'm just like, woo, you know? Like fucking Ultimate Warrior. Like, how many gorilla press slams can I do in one night? It's nothing but a good time, man. Nothing but a good time.
And so once we got a handful of songs done, Shane used his own money out of his pocket to book some studio time, and I ended up going in and recording drums for, I don't know how many songs I did, maybe 7, something like that.
You think you got all the answers, like everyone else, but you're too preoccupied taking pictures of yourself, trying to talk and talk when you can't walk the walk. Comparison apparently it must be catching up. Your friends, all the friends just have you in your bed. Your other tradition for the town of the band. It's such a sad state of affairs that you're in, but you did it to yourself your ass will be crying in the end. Oh no, that's a gun turn. Hearts will be broken and then people will get burned. But tonight the scene goes down. Am I a criminal?
So we wrote a bunch of songs. We recorded a bunch of demos for Shane Mack. Dustin and I started off that way, and then he quickly moved to South Jersey, and we lived together. And then we just started rocking out every day.
It was the right place at the right time. It definitely helped get me going. When Shane and I started jamming, he already had members in mind for the Shane Mack project. When we were trying to come up with a band name for New Liberty, we were still the Shane Mack project, but we were hanging out with, we made friends with this Philadelphia Eagles cheerleader, and we were at her apartment one night, and we were like, yeah, we need a band name. But it was something, we wanted to kind of be something patriotic in the sense, I guess. And so this girl said, what about Liberty? And we were like, okay. And then we ended up coming up with New Liberty because we were living in New Jersey and we were playing in Philadelphia. So it was the new part of New Jersey and the Liberty part of Philadelphia, the Liberty Bell and all that. So that's how we came up with the New Liberty name.
You think you got all the answers like everyone else, but you're too preoccupied with taking pictures of yourself trying to talk the talk when you can't walk the walk. It's embarrassing, apparently it must be catching up. All your friends are the friends that stab you in your bed. Your transportation for a time in the band. It's such a sad state of affairs that you're in, but you did it to yourself and there's no one else to blame. You just been caught out. Here's one more thing for you to bitch about. Spread all your rumors and tell all your friends. You bet your ass you'll be crying in the end. Some heads are gonna turn, hearts will get broken and many people will get burned. Cause tonight your scene goes down and I'm a criminal.
We ended up forming, and that's when we started writing the songs for the New Liberty self-titled album. And I ended up recording that record by myself in the studio because everybody else had to work. So yeah, I recorded the songs by myself to just the click track. So we rehearsed all the songs, and so it was kind of interesting because the producer that we had, and he really didn't know what the songs sounded like because it came in and I told him what the BPMs were for the songs, and I went in and just recorded by myself, and he's like, that's a first time I've ever had somebody come in and just play drums on a record by themselves. And there's a lot of double bass, and I think he thought the band sounded one way, but then as the songs started to progress with the other members coming in, he could really start to see where the songs were going. Doing that New Liberty record really took my drumming again to the next level. The Shane Mack stuff, I was playing one way, and then when we started writing the New Liberty stuff, Shane actually encouraged me to play a lot of double bass because he was, really into the idea of it. And, we were into all of the metalcore bands that were popular at the time, mainly Killswitch Engage, Avenged Sevenfold. But Shane is also a big fan of pop punk, and he kind of opened me up to that whole scene and kind of helped mold my playing into what it is today. It really set me up to be able to play in Night Demon, where, I have these like punk rock chops, but I also have the metal backbone. I also have the pop backbone along with the glam metal backbone and classic rock. So there's all those different styles that come into play with these kind of bands. And it was really fun. I mean, I was definitely proud of what I was able to do with New Liberty up to that point.
That's when things started getting a little bit more structured, and we started to, get online and really started getting a presence and getting known. I'll say this, we played a singer-songwriter fest at Cape May as a fucking band. Met this guy named Chris J, who was in a fucking band in Ventura. And
hey, my name is Chris J, and I am in the band Army of Freshmen. We were a relatively successful pop punk band in the 2000s.
We're just body parts, arms and legs and hands and hearts. Dissect the memory of everything that we used to be. Other worlds away, gone forever yesterday. Don't remember anything. These remains that won't forget you.
Night Demon actually appears as a cameo in an Army of Freshmen video. We did a send-up of the spaghetti western genre in a music video. It was a blast, super cool. We dressed up like cowboys and ran around, and silly video. Supposed to be a comedy video, but at the time, Night Demon did not exist. However, we were friends with Jarvis's band at the time. We were friends with Armand's band at the time. And we were friends with Diesel's band at the time. I think they were all in 3 completely separate bands. And they looked like bad guys, and they looked like they'd be hanging out with each other. So if you find the video, it is on YouTube. It's Army of Freshmen Body Parts. Legit. Before they were in Night Demon, all 3 guys from Night Demon are together, dressed in black, much like Night Demon would be, dressed in black, running around the video as bad guys in a spaghetti western. Again, that's my band. It was a pop punk band. When the music business was slowing down ever so slightly, we got into producing a lot of different artists. When I say we, it was myself and a gentleman by the name of Aaron Goldberg, who was the guitar player in Army of Freshmen. So we were always at the time on MySpace on the lookout for different artists that we could produce, whether it was demos or records. And we were invited to speak at a event in Cape May, New Jersey. Oddly enough, that's my hometown. That's how I knew of the event. It was a singer-songwriter event. So this is where this gets crazy. I hop on MySpace to see who is going to be at this event, to see if there's anybody that I'd potentially be interested in working with, that I could check out what artists are going to be at this thing. And you have to understand, this is an acoustic music event. This is not a rock and roll concert. This is a weekend of singer-songwriters playing in coffee houses and places like that. So what gets crazy is this. There is a band listed by the name of New Liberty. And I looked at the picture and they look like some rockers, and it just didn't seem like they would be a good fit at an event like this at all. So I had to reach out to them and say hi, and told them I was getting ready to go to the same event that they were at, and I would check out their set, and if they'd like to get together and talk, we could talk about potentially working together. So that's exactly what happened. I went and caught their set, and they had a lot of potential. They were like a solid rock band, but they kind of seemed like they didn't have the genre quite figured out. Like some parts were kind of like classic rock, some parts were a little pop punk, some parts were a little like kind of Guns N' Rosey. And with that said, I went out to lunch with them. I remember I went to a restaurant called Uncle Bill's Pancake House, and I sat down with these four guys, and there's a term in the wrestling business called living the gimmick, and these guys were living the gimmick. I mean, they were dressed like rockers, acting like rockers, clearly partying like rockers.
He thought we were out of our fucking minds, which we probably were, but like, you have to be out of your mind if you want to fucking do anything that is original.
Listen, one thing led to another, and I ultimately invited them to come out to California and record a demo. And I believe they had some thoughts of doing that to begin with. They wanted to kind of, take the next step. So I invited them out to California.
Thought we were out of our fucking minds, like we're gonna quit our jobs. And I'm like, fuck this shit, dude. We're moving out to California. We're gonna figure this shit out. We're gonna hop in a motorhome and live wherever the fuck we want to live, and we're gonna like bring back the 80s, man. Like, we're gonna fucking do this thing, So yeah, we meet up with Chris J. He says, hey man, you guys are already planning to head west. I got this guy, he's got a studio. You should come out here, hire my friend and I to produce your shit. Like, we knew that they weren't gonna produce fucking anything, but they did. And what they did was they produced in the sense of introducing us to a whole group of people, a family, of friends. They opened doors that we could have never imagined. We used to lay in bed in our bunk beds. So that's right, I know, crazy as it sounds. Four of us, Willie Love, Nico Mars, Diesel Bottoms, Shane Mack, living in a fucking 2-bedroom apartment in Haddonfield, New Jersey, Barrington, laying in bed. And I remember talking to Dustin and saying, listen to him say, oh man, all we gotta do, bro, is we just gotta find a studio. We gotta live there. We gotta record an album, man. And then we'll get fucking famous, bro. It'll be fucking sick. We'll tour, and it's gonna be amazing. And it was like a pipe dream that we chased down in the late 2000s when nobody was chasing anything. And we kept running. We kept fucking running.
We just didn't want to work for corporate America, and we wanted to go and at least shoot for, sky's the limit. Let's go for it. So we quit our jobs and hopped in a 76 Dodge motorhome and moved to California.
I mean, we took a 1976 motorhome, a Dodge Sportsman, 1976 motorhome with a 6x10 trailer on it, and we said, screw it all, we're going out to California. And we did. We took that shit out there, and we landed.
The details are definitely a little muddy after all these years, but ultimately these guys come rolling up. They had driven cross country in I want to say an RV, but it was arguably the world's worst RV. It totally looked like a child molester den. If I remember, there was a big eagle painted on the side of it. Like, it looked like it had no ability to make it cross country. It turns out it broke down several times, but they were like crashing at the Walmart parking lot every night because they had heard a rumor that if you had an RV, you could stay at the Walmart parking lot.
And then we ended up driving the motorhome to go pick up Nick from the airport, brought him to Ventura, And that's when we set up we already had the studio time set up for the 2 songs to work with Armand in his studio.
Myself and Aaron agreed to produce essentially a demo or an EP, whatever you want to call it. And we chose to record it at our friend Armand's studio. He was a close friend, and he would engineer, and he let us use his studio for a lot of projects. And he was a very valuable engineer because he also did a lot of production as well, and he doubled up as a great guitarist. So if you worked with Armand, you knew, hey man, if somebody in the band sucks, Armand's capable of playing it, which would happen quite a bit, actually.
Most importantly, we met Armand. So here we are. We're in Ventura, and we're at Armand's studio. It's fucking crazy, right? Here, Dustin and I have been talking about this moment forever. We just got to find a studio, live in front of it.
We do a little pre-production with these guys. I think we worked on a couple tunes. We go over to record the EP, and one thing leads to another, and they just hit it off with Armand. I mean, we're talking kindred spirits. They just really had a connection because they liked a lot of the same music, and they definitely liked the party. So it was a really good fit. New Liberty basically said, we're going to try and make a go in California. We're not going home. We're going to stay here, which is a real, leap of faith.
Armand said, I like what you're doing. I love the passion. I'm in. I'm sold. Let's do this. You guys are going to live here in your motorhome. I'm going to introduce you to all kinds of people, and you're going to do what you do best. Shane, you're going to write songs. You're going to work on this shit. You're going to be a front man. Willie, Dustin, you guys are going to fucking do this shit the way that you're supposed to do it, that you're built to do it. We're going to keep doing this thing. I'm going to teach you guys what it is to be in this scene that we knew nothing about.
You don't come across people with this kind of drive, and I don't know, maybe it's because I grew up in California and I grew up, close to LA. And it wasn't a big deal to go down there. I mean, of course, it was always a big deal for us to go play in Hollywood and all that, but, we were close to it. When you're living on the East Coast and shit like that, Hollywood, LA, Sunset, that whole thing probably is like a fucking, it's a dream kind of thing to get to do that and to actually get in and like make the trek. I don't think a lot of people can do that or end up following through with it. So these guys, a friend of mine, the same friend that used to bring these bands over from England and stuff like that I recorded, calls me up one day and he's like, dude, I fucking met your band. I met these guys. They're fucking out of their minds. They're dressed like they're in fucking, right out of Sunset, 1988 Sunset Strip. They're wild. They got a fucking big rock sound, and you're going to love them. I'm bringing them to the studio. They're going to come over and they're going to record with you. They're coming to California. They're driving their fucking uncle's motorhome across country. They sold all their shit and they quit their jobs and they're doing it. The rock and roll dream. I'm like, fuck. All right. Yeah, cool. Whatever. It's just another gig for me in the studio. So these guys get here, and funny enough, I think like Jarvis was in the studio with me. I don't know. This was 2010, 2011, something like that. I think they landed Memorial Day. Yeah, Memorial Day 2010. Fuck. So next month, in a couple weeks. Or in a week, it'll be the another anniversary of when they came out here. So they ended up coming up here, and for whatever reason, Jarvis was here in the studio, I think, and those guys walked in, and they were like, "Hey, what's up? What's going on? Nice to meet you." And I think the first thing he said to them was something about some fucking sports team. hey, how about those Flyers or the fucking Eagles or some shit? They just lost a big game, and I don't think those guys had seen it, so they didn't know. So he just kind of like started out that this first introduction to them was giving him the bad news that their sports team lost the fucking World Series or whatever the fuck it is. Sorry, I'm not a big sports guy. I used to be, but not for football and stuff like that. So anyway, Chris J, the infamous producer who brought them out here, I mean, I guess they were already planning on like doing the whole trip and relocating to LA and fucking living the dream, man. And so by meeting him, they basically had a place to go first, which was here to record a demo. So they came in, I set them up, and I was like, fuck, I like these guys' attitude. It's like, I've never fucking seen or met anybody like these guys that actually did it and came out. The guitar player, Nick, he was the one kind of odd guy out. Like, he didn't really fit. Like, he didn't really have the look or like, the madness that the other three guys had, Dusty, Shane, and Willie. Turns out, funny enough, is that their guitar player, Nick, he was Greek. He's Greek too. And his family had restaurants and all that good stuff. And so they came out here. I recorded the demo with them. It was over a weekend. It was pretty good shit. Pretty rockin'.
Attack, it's complicated, but so's a knife in my back. I've been collecting numbers, got a whole arsenal, hidden bases, secret places, so that nobody knows. It's a mystery, I'm history, out on my own. We were stuck in a hole, now you're buried alone. 'Cause I'm on a roll and no one's ever stopping me. Losing control is better than it used to be. Holding you was only holding me down. Now I'm on a roll and no one's ever stopping me now.
So those guys, that's how we met. And long story short, they went to Hollywood. Things didn't work out with Nick, with the guitar player. He decided he was going to fly back home and, didn't want to do the rock and roll, fucking give it all up and, rough it lifestyle. He had a good job. Guy liked to make money, so he knew what he was doing, and he's still doing that, and he's doing really well at it. And he's a great friend of mine now, through those guys, and I'm happy to met him. And that's how it goes. That's just the way it is. Sometimes that's what life is, and there was a reason he was there and a reason that he left. It was to open the door for me. So I took those guys in, and they were living in a motorhome, so they had nowhere to really stay. And they realized real quick that they couldn't just fucking park in LA wherever the fuck they wanted, because they were going to get towed, and they don't roll like that out there. So they ended up coming back up to Ventura and pretty much ended up living in my parking lot for a good 6 months or so.
Because we had nowhere to go. We had moved to California, and now our band is kind of falling apart. So we spent a lot of time at Armand's studio. We actually parked the motorhome like in front of the studio and lived there for like about 8 months.
And meanwhile, I was still working on building the studio. I had done a lot of work with my buddies, with Robin and Aaron, doing the initial building and with the dads and whatever that helped us out. But, those guys had jobs. They worked during the day, and so we could only really work on the place on the weekends. I couldn't do a lot of the stuff by myself. But then I had these guys fucking hanging out in my parking lot. So I said, hey, well, if you guys are here, I'm going to put you to work. So come on in and let's do this. We're hanging carpet and we're putting shit on the walls and we're doing this and that.
And so Armand put us to work in the studio as far as helping him get it ready. So we did a lot of work with him on like the trim and a lot of staining, just whatever he needed help with to get the studio up and running and to look nice. So we did a lot of work with him, and then we ended up bonding with him over that.
And meanwhile, I'm vibing with them, and I decide to, I'm like, hey, you guys got to listen to Thin Lizzy, you got to listen to this. After recording them, I was like, you guys need to learn how to swing, like shit like that. So I kind of like took them under my wing and mentored them a little bit. And
so me, Shane, and Willie started jamming with Armand, and we ended up writing songs for what would become the Uninvited record.
As we hung out more and more and became closer friends, I said, hey, I'll jam with you guys. I'll help you guys write some songs. Well, helping them write some songs turned into writing a record with them, which ended up being the album called The Uninvited.
And he was the missing puzzle piece. He was that thing that the band needed in terms of the musicianship, in terms of a little bit of direction. But from the point that Armand joined, they took off. They just made that next step as a band and kind of really honed their sound to be, I'm going to say, basically, they were Motley Crue. They were Guns N' Roses. I mean, they were this hard rock band that classic rock people liked, but at the same time, like metal guys kind of respected too. And man, when they were happening, they were hot.
I don't know, but like Armand, it was like so easy to write songs, because he's like so gifted. I could write something on a fucking paper plate in his front room in 25 seconds and be like, hey man, what do you think of this? And he'd be like, I like that. Like, let's do this, this, and this, and this. And this is a variation of that chord. And like, we'll fucking build on this. And I'm like, the best ever opportunity for myself, because I'd never experienced a guitar player that ever worked with me that way. Up until that point, it was me sitting on a fucking toilet, writing all the riffs and then writing all the rhythm parts and like trying to ad-lib solos and then thinking about like what the melody line should be and then what the harmony line should be. And I finally had that moment of realizing like, holy shit, this is what it's like when you meet the guy that like completes you in that process. And it was like so organic and so quick. I was like, I have an older brother who can do that.
Armand helped me take my drumming to another level. When we first got there, he asked us how much we knew about Thin Lizzy, and we didn't really know a whole lot about them. You know, I knew their hits and stuff, and I knew that Metallica were fans of Thin Lizzy, but he really just, you know, was like, you got to swing and you got to shuffle and you got to play like Brian Downey, you know, and here's some records, you know, and do your homework. And you know, it really took my drumming to another level once again, and he helped me get in the studio and kind of helped me play on all kinds of different songs, you know, because he was like, hey, you know, if you want to play in the studio, I can get you some gigs and, you know, get you in here and playing on some stuff you haven't played on before. So that was really cool. You know, it kind of opened the door again for me to be ready for Night Demon. But the Uninvited record was really, really cool. You know, we wrote some really great stuff. You know, then we went out and started playing a lot of gigs and a lot of bar shows and shit. I mean, the sky was the limit.
They developed a really big following in the area that we were from, Ventura. So these guys straight up relocated off of a meeting over a pancake house and me offering to, you know, work on their demo, and hence met Armand and became the missing piece of their band. They started a tour. They released the record, which is a great record. I mean, if you like Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, just a touch of hair band, but with some ass kicking, like riff rock. So these guys are kicking ass and taking names and playing some really good shows. I saw them a couple times at their peak where I was like, man, this is like, I feel like I'm watching Guns N' Roses at the Roxy in 1985 or something like that. I mean, it was that special.
We fucking came in and just like exploded everything. And it was all because of Armand. You know, Armand knew like everybody there. He basically like paraded us around. Like, these are my Philly guys, you know, like these are my Philly boys. And, you know, like we were fucking bathing in people's bird feeders in their front yards, you know, raging and parking our motorhome out in front of their houses at like 3 a.m. and sitting down at Spencer McKenzie's and like eating like fucking, you know, fresh cut tuna and shit. And getting it for free because these people were like that fucking cool. And we were like, this is the greatest place on earth, you know? Like, holy shit. Like, I never could have imagined in my entire life. Dream come true. A dream come true.
So, as Armand and New Liberty are tearing it up on the Ventura scene, Jarvis is taking his Heartbeats band from a side project to a full-on touring band.
When we were New Liberty, gigging around the area, Jarvis saw us play, I would say, at least 60 times. He came and watched us play all the time. And he was a fan of the band, which was cool. And I loved, Jeff Hershey and the Heartbeats.
I most certainly remember Jeff Hershey in the Heartbeats. Oh, God, how can I forget the Van Austin tour, going to Austin, Texas, South by Southwest, Jeff Hershey and his Heartbeats. And, obviously Jeff had spent a lot of time with Dick Dale. There was a lot of that in there. And you could tell that he definitely really could represent himself as that kind of like creature, if you will. And, Jeff's a showman through and through. I mean, like, he is a band leader. This guy, he's good at what he does.
For the first time in my life, heavy metal and hard rock just had nothing to do with my main musical focus. It was the strangest feeling. It was like, I don't know, it was like being a child. It was like picking up an instrument for the first time, but there was something about it that really excited me. It's not that I didn't listen to metal or I didn't listen to rock. I was listening to that, among other things, all kinds of stuff. I was just enamored with the origins of rock. I mean, I feel like there was just some things that were passed over, and my playing had just become so rudimentary at that point. And it was just like, I went to the school of Metallica, who went to the school of Black Sabbath. But what school did Black Sabbath go to, right? It's like I wanted to engross myself musically with the true originators of rock and roll, the people that were the influences of my heroes. So at that point, I needed to do another recording. So I got together with our guitar player, Joe, and our drummer, Tony, and actually our friend Brent Harding, who is the bass player of Social Distortion. And he was a great upright bass player. So we went and recorded 4 songs in a practice room, which actually was Sirith Ungol's old practice room. So from there, things really kicked off for the Heartbeats. And, I worked a day job to support that band because I just wanted the best musicians around me. So I had to pay session guys all the time. But, once I really started to immerse myself in that style of music, I just started to get a lot better at music, straight up. I wasn't a one-dimensional player anymore. And that was really exciting to me. And that's when the evolution of the Heartbeats happened. It wasn't just a kind of rockabilly band or a doo-wop band anymore. And that's when I made the record Soul Music Volume 1. The cool thing about that record is everything on it is analog. We recorded to 16-track 2-inch tape. There's nothing digital on that. So if you listen to the LP version, nothing digital has touched that. So that's like straight from the tape to the mixing board, no automation on the board, to the mastered tape, to the lacquer, to the vinyl. That's it. These days, that process is basically unheard of. I'm sure there's still people that do that, but it's extremely rare that something digital doesn't touch it at some point. So once I had a full-length record, at that point, I was just really wanting to do something with it and just make it explode, really. So, it's funny, both myself and Armand were touring with Dick Dale at the time as his guitar tech. Armand was his guitar tech in the States. I was his guitar tech in Europe. So Armand and I had not toured together. But basically in Europe, I had met a lot of people through Dick Dale, a lot of people in that old school rock scene. I got my agent to book a tour, and the rest is history. We went to Europe a few times, and man, we worked our asses off. I was doing 3 wardrobe changes a night. Sometimes the shows would go up to 2 hours, just sweat pounding. We did a punk rock covers EP, I remember. Like, I was really trying to get the band to be like more of a punk band than like soul meets punk. It was just a high energy show. I was like the white James Brown of Europe at the time. I think at the end of the day, like when I started to get a lot of press around the band, I kind of noticed that as the world of social media was growing, I think people really, they want you to be just the most authentic with yourself you can be. And I think that anybody can be whatever they want. And I don't think it's for the public to decide who anybody else should be. However, I do agree with this aspect of things, because it's like the frontman in Jeff Hershey and the Heartbeats was an alter ego for me. It was a character that I played on stage. It was a way for me to escape some of the harsh or disturbing realities of my life and just get on stage and make people really happy. And I feel like the press and some of the more diehard fans, especially in Europe and in the Latin countries, they expected me to be that person off stage. They expected me to be that person 24/7, and I just wasn't. They'd see me after the shows. I would come out of the dressing room with like a leather jacket and like a Diamond Head shirt and jeans. So it started to weigh on me. And, I had also felt tapped out musically. I felt that I had taken this thing from doo-wop to rockabilly to soul to modern soul punk and done a ton of covers that I wanted to do. I'd taken the band to all these other countries. And I just, at a certain point, I was just uninspired by it. That's when I met Brent Woodward, and that was when Night Demon was born.
So with Jarvis feeling that the Heartbeats have maybe run their course, New Liberty, after leaving their mark on the music scene, they also come to their end.
They were a little either behind the time or ahead of the time. But although they developed a really nice following in the area, it just really, the music business was in serious flux at the time. At least their live shows were, I would say. And they, like most bands that kick ass, there were definitely some personality conflicts. I'd be willing to say extreme personality conflicts. Sadly, they had imploded.
It was really cool, to be in that band for the time that I was.
So Jarvis takes a sidestep from the path of heavy metal music that he's been on for his whole life and records and tours Europe with the Heartbeats. And he kind of sees that band through to its conclusion. And meanwhile, a chance meeting between Dusty and Shane Mack, it leads to New Liberty forming, and another chance meeting with Chris J encouraging New Liberty to, move to Ventura. He hooks him up with Armand, and, things just seem fated to fall into place. So now Jarvis starts to feel the pull of heavy metal. And with both of these bands coming to their ends, all these players are now in the same place on the West Coast. And there's this perfect storm for a new wave of British heavy metal inspired band to spawn in Ventura, California. So that's it for this week. Next week, we pick it up with the meeting of Brent Woodward and Jarvis Leatherby and the formation of Night Demon. So be sure to check out the bonus section for all the tracks that we heard clips of today. There's photo galleries and more. Until next time, this is Nesbitt signing off.
Thanks for listening to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. Head over to nightdemon.net, click on the subscriber tab, and sign up to access exclusive weekly bonus content. If you would like to donate to support the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast, you can do so through PayPal at paypal.me/nightdemonmetal. Additionally, if you have not already done so, please subscribe, like, rate, and review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All hail, Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. This is Dusty Squires chiming in to tell you about my brand new signature sticks from the London Drumstick Company. I've dreamt of having my very own drumsticks ever since I was a wee lad, and LDC made that a possibility for me. Founded in 2016 in London, England, the birthplace of heavy metal, the London Drumstick Company has trailblazed a path through the music industry and taken the drummer world by storm. When I met them for the first time, they knew their product was going to withstand the beatings of a Night Demon show. They took the time to work with me on getting everything just right. The balance and weight of my sticks are the same no matter what, and the durability is bar none the best I've ever had. I know my sticks will last through the set night after night. I'm truly honored to work with a company that caters to their players the way LDC does. Their innovation and attention to detail is what separates them from the rest of the stick makers out there. Their custom stick sleeves are unbelievable and really make the entire presentation complete. Wait until you see the design they came up with for me. It blew my mind and was a surprise to say the least. They have all kinds of amazing swag, including hoodies, t-shirts, drummer shorts, drum keys, stick bags, towels, face masks, practice pads, and much, much more. Even if you're not a drummer, you can be a part of Demon history and order my brand new signature sticks direct from their website. How cool is that? And to top it off, the London Drumstick Company are giving an exclusive offer to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. Go to londondrumsticks.co.uk and receive a 15% store-wide discount using promo code DEMONSTICKS. All capital letters, no spaces, Demon Sticks. DEMONSTICKS. I can't thank everyone there enough for the opportunity to be a part of their family and for them trusting me with their amazing products. See you metal maniacs on the road very soon. And yes, the wood chips will be flying.
Greetings, boils and ghouls. This is your comrade, the Crypt Keeper here, reporting dead from the sanctuary of the strange. Tonight's macabre myth is a fright-filled feature, one overflowing with monsters, madness, and magic.
Visit our website at monstersmadnessandmagic.com to stay up to date on all the dark dealings within the sanctuary of the strange. Enjoy the show.
Hey Metalheads, I'm Mark and I host the Metal Forge. Let me tell you about the show. The Metal Forge features the best underground metal from all over the world. We spend every week with a different artist with interviews, in-depth conversations, and most of all, the music. We also feature audience interactivity where you can submit your questions to the upcoming guests. New episodes are out every Friday at noon Eastern Time at metalforgeradio.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
Okay, metalheads, you've been complaining that there has not been a channel that plays all of the heavy metal videos from past, present, and future for years and years at this point. Well, that time is over. Heavy Metal Television is back. HeavyMetalTelevision.net is the website. Go there. You can see videos playing 24/7, 365, all the time. All the best from the old school, the new school, and everything in between. Check it out, HeavyMetalTelevision.net. It is where the metal is.